My name is Nella Sarik, and I'm going to be talking about nonverbal communication and what it really is. Nonverbal communication. It refers to everything we communicate without using actual words. This includes things like your body language or your facial expressions, the eye contact, tone of voice, posture, and even our physical appearance. What's important to understand is that nonverbal communication is constant. We're always sending signals, even when we're not speaking. For example, silence itself can communicate a message. If someone asks you a question and you pause too long, that silence might be interpreted as hesitation or confusion or even disagreement. Another key point is that nonverbal communication, it can either support what we're saying or completely contradict it. For example, if someone says they're excited about something, but their tone is flat and they avoid eye contact, people are more likely to believe the nonverbal cues over their words. The visuals on this slide, they show how small changes in posture or movement can represent very different attitudes. For example, sitting with open posture, it can signal confidence and openness, while crossed arms or leaning away can signal defensiveness or even discomfort. Overall, these subtle behaviors, they may seem small, but they strongly influence how others interpret our emotions, the intentions, and the level of engagement. Now, let's talk about some of the influence of nonverbal communication. In a workplace setting, nonverbal communication plays a major role in shaping how others perceive us. It impacts first impressions almost instantly, often before we even say the first word. For example, when you meet someone for the first time, they're already forming opinions based on your posture, your eye contact, and your overall presence. These impressions can influence whether they see you as confident, trustworthy, or credible. Nonverbal communication also affects trust and accountability. When our body language matches our words, people are more likely to believe us. But when there's a mismatch, it can create doubt. There are several key types of nonverbal communication commonly seen in the workplace. Eye contact shows attentiveness and confidence. Facial expressions help communicate emotions and the reactions. Tone of voice can completely change the meaning of what we say. So think about how sarcasm works. Gestures and body language also play a big role. Open, relaxed posture can make you seem approachable, while closed-off posture can make you seem disengaged. Personal space, or proxemics, is another factor. Standing too close or too far away can impact comfort and professionalism. All these elements work together to shape how others interpret us, which is why being aware of them is so important in professional environments. On this next slide, we're going to take a little deeper dive into see how the effects of nonverbal communications and seeing how powerful it really is. The first impression happens extremely quick. It's within a fraction of a second. So the way we present ourselves nonverbally immediately sets the tone for how others will see us. Trust is a major factor. While we might think trust is built through what we say, it's often built more through what people observe. Simple behaviors like maintaining eye contact, nodding, and mirroring someone's body language can help build a sense of connection and understanding. Accountability and credibility are also closely tied to nonverbal communications. When someone's actions, expressions, and tone are consistent with their words, they come across as more reliable and believable. People are also very aware of changes in behavior. If someone suddenly becomes nervous, they avoid eye contact, or they start fidgeting, others may interpret that as a sign of dishonesty or discomfort, even if that's not the actual case. This shows how easily nonverbal cues can be misinterpreted. Finally, perception plays a huge role, especially in leadership. Leaders are often judged not by what they say, but how they carry themselves. Strong eye contact, confident posture, and open body language can make someone appear more capable and in control. Overall, nonverbal communication shapes how we are perceived in almost every interaction, which is why being aware of these cues can make a big difference in both personal and professional settings. Up next, we're going to be talking about the 55-38-7 formula. One well-known researcher in nonverbal communication is Albert Mehrabian. He introduced a concept that helps explain how much nonverbal communication influences how messages are received. According to his findings, when we communicate emotions or attitudes, about 55% comes from body language, 38% comes from tone of voice, and only 7% comes from the actual words we say, but this doesn't mean the words aren't important. It shows that how we say something often matters more than what we say, especially when expressing feelings or attitude. Mehrabian also emphasized that when there's a mismatch between what someone says and their body language, people are more likely to believe the nonverbal cues. For example, if someone says, "I'm fine," but looks tense, avoids eye contact, or has a shaky voice, we usually assume they're not actually fine. His quote basically reinforces this idea that posture and body language tend to dominate when people are trying to interpret someone's true feelings. Overall, this highlights why being aware of your nonverbal communication is so important, because people are constantly interpreting not just our words, but how we physically present them. In this slide, we're going to be talking about the importance of in-person versus, let's say, on the phone or over the computer. So basically, another important contribution to the study of body language comes from Alan Pease and Barbara Pease, who wrote the definition book of body language. They analyzed real-life sales negotiations from the 1970s to the 1980s, so about 10 years or so, to understand how body language affects communication and the outcomes. What they found was very interesting. Body language had a major impact on in-person negotiations. In fact, it could sometimes influence the outcome more than the actual words being spoken. One of their key findings was that the strongest argument was more likely to win over the phone than in person. This is because on the phone, the listener mainly focuses on the words and tone of the voice without being influenced by the body. However, in face-to-face interactions, body language can either strengthen or weaken a message. For example, if someone presents a strong argument but appears nervous, avoids eye contact, or has closed-off posture, it may reduce how convincing they seem. This research highlights that in-person communication isn't just about having the best argument. It's also about how confidently and clearly that message is delivered through nonverbal cues. Overall, it shows that body language can significantly influence decision making, especially in high-stakes situations like negotiating. In this next slide, it will be more about the examples of the types of nonverbal communication. So first, kinesics, body movement and the gestures. Smiling can indicate happiness, nodding indicates agreeing, folded arms comes across as defensive, and a thumb up gives approval. Number 2 is vocals. The quality of voice. High pitch can indicate nervousness. Speaking quickly comes off as someone being anxious. Monotone comes off as bored. Up next is haptics, your sense of touch. A firm handshake, someone is confident. A forced shove comes off as aggression. 4 is proxemics, physical space and distance. Public speakers are normally 12 or more feet away from their crowd. Environmental changes is the discomfort in packed spaces. Chronemics is the impact of time. Punctuality, it's very professionalism and respectful. Physical appearance, uniforms come off as group affiliations. Tattoos are personal identity or sometimes cultural. And then we have artifacts, objects or images. High-end objects such as jewelry or expensive car, can signify economic status. And then digital nonverbal cues. GIFs is expressing complex reactions, but also response latency. It can give or show eagerness or reluctancy.
Hi, my name is Whitney Waldo, and I'm going to explain how body language plays such an important role in how we communicate with others. Body language is a form of nonverbal communication that expresses our thoughts, intentions, and emotions through physical behaviors. This can include things like posture, facial expressions, eye contact, and even small movements we may not realize we are making. For example, something as simple as smiling or frowning or slouching, or even using hand gestures can send powerful messages to the people around us, sometimes even more powerful than our own words. One of the most important aspects of body language is posture. And posture is a nonverbal cue that directly reflects confidence and self-assurance. When someone stands or sits up straight, they often appear more confident or professional, and sometimes they appear more in control. And good posture can communicate qualities such as leadership, power, and resilience without even saying a single word. But posture doesn't just affect how others see us, it also affects how we see ourselves. The idea is explained by a concept called embodied cognition, which means that our physical state can influence our mental state. In other words, when you carry yourself with confidence, you may actually begin to feel more confident. This can improve your mood, your mindset, and even how you approach challenges throughout the day. Another key part of body language is the difference between open and closed body language. Open body language includes behaviors like keeping your arms crossed, maintaining eye contact, and having relaxed, purposeful movements. This type of body language shows that you are approachable, engaged, and confident. It is especially important in the workplace setting because it signals that you are listening, collaborating, and showing respect to others. On the other hand, closed body language can send a very different message. This includes actions like avoiding eye contact, slouching, crossing your arms, and these behaviors can make you appear uncomfortable, insecure, or uninterested, even if that's not actually how you feel. Because of this, being aware of your body language is extremely important in professional and social situations. So you may be wondering, why does all of this matter? Positive body language and good posture can help create a very strong first impression. They can build trust, show respect, and even open the door to new opportunities. When people perceive you as confident and engaged, they are more likely to listen to you or work with you and even value your input. In contrast, negative body language can have the opposite effect. Poor posture, lack of eye contact, and closed off gestures can damage relationships and even impact career growth. It may cause others to feel dismissed or less willing to communicate with you, which can reduce trust and teamwork. As you can see above me, I have added a visual comparison of the differences between good body language and bad body language. On the left, the person demonstrates positive body language, and it shows that they convey confidence, approachability, and even engagement. On the right, we can see the opposite. This posture may suggest discomfort, lack of confidence, and even disinterest. In conclusion, by improving our posture and being more mindful of how we present ourselves physically, we can positively influence both how others perceive us and how we feel about ourselves. Small changes in body language can lead to very big improvements in confidence, communication, and even in our success.
Hello, my name is Jacob Brinson, and I will be talking about the importance of eye contact and facial expressions as a whole. Now, I have 3 quick points here that I'll go over, but mainly I'll talk about these in the next 2 to 3 slides. Now, the first point I have is that good eye contact makes you more trustworthy and relatable. Now, this is very important because trustworthiness and relatableness are very important skills in a business person. Keeping eye contact is a terrific way to show that you are actively listening to the speaker. That is my second point, and I wrote this because making sure that you are actively listening will show the speaker that you respect them and are interested in what they have to say. Now, the third point I have here is being able to maintain eye contact throughout a conversation shows confidence and will make you appear more credible. And this is more so important for the other side of it, where you avoid eye contact. Make sure you do not do that. Avoiding eye contact throughout the conversation will make you seem unconfident and uncredible and like you are unsure of yourself, which is not what we are going for. Alright, so I think this slide is very important because it talks about appropriate versus inappropriate eye contact. And now, the first point that I have here is that you should maintain eye contact most of the time, but not all of the time. Around 60 to 70% is that little perfect spot where you're making eye contact a lot of the time, but you're also not making the other person uncomfortable. Because you don't want to be staring at them 100% of the time, which, if we look over on the inappropriate side, would be avoiding staring intensely for too long at them. So if you're just staring into their eyes for the whole conversation, that might make them feel uncomfortable. They might lose their train of thought. They might be thinking about, why is he looking at me so hard? So you definitely want to avoid that. Stay in that 60 to 70% range and don't go above that. Now, an important thing here is that you need to make sure you're keeping eye contact when someone is actively speaking. We touched on this on the last slide, but when somebody is actively speaking, it is respectful that you keep eye contact to prove that you are actively listening. Because if somebody is just talking just to talk, they might just feel demotivated if you seem disinterested in what they have to say. Now, again, we touched on this at the end of the last slide, but it is very, very important that you do not avoid eye contact completely. Looking down, looking at your phone, looking at your shoes, looking away, this will make you feel unprepared. It will make you seem unprofessional, and it will just not make your employer or coworkers, whoever you're talking to, it will not make them feel comfortable or interested in the conversation. Facial expressions are very important. First impressions especially are crucial. Your facial expression will be the first thing that people notice, and it is very important that you keep your facial expression in a first meeting at either a neutral or ideally a positive facial expression, either with a smile or something else. Especially when you're shaking someone's hand, it is important that you're keeping eye contact and smiling throughout that whole time, because that is really the first time that you're interacting with this person, so you want to make sure that it goes well. It will kind of set the tone for the whole conversation. Now, there's a happy medium to strike in between disinterested and too interested. You don't want to be slouched over, you don't want to act disinterested, you don't want to be looking at the floor because that'll make you seem unprofessional. But you also don't want to be super intense, staring into their eyes the whole time, talking super loudly. Maybe you even end up talking over them or saying something that you wish you wouldn't have said. The best way to avoid this is to just stay relaxed and give an attentive look throughout the conversation. Microexpressions is a little less common and a little less talked about as eye contact and the other things that I've talked about in my other slides, but in my opinion, it is just as important. And now, microexpressions are typically involuntary. They happen without you even knowing, and they can really give away a lot of what you are thinking without you even meaning to. So, in my opinion, there are two main points for microexpressions, and one of the points is to make sure that you keep your microexpressions to a minimum. You know, whether somebody says something that bothers you or angers you, you shouldn't show that immediately. If something really does bother you and it really does upset you and you feel like you need to talk to somebody about it, then you should definitely talk to somebody about it. But don't immediately show it on your face to whoever you're talking to. Now, the second main point that is important with this is strengthening your ability to interpret these microexpressions. Because you show microexpressions, but also so does everybody else. So if you become more confident in reading other people's faces and understanding what they mean, then that will make your emotional intelligence increase, which will help you read the room better. Now, there are two quick examples I'd like to talk about, and one is that you are in a job interview and the employer asks, what is a weakness of yours? In this situation, some people might get uncomfortable. They might show a whole bunch of microexpressions on their face that will be unfavorable to them. What I recommend doing is stay calm, keep eye contact, and seem confident even if you are talking about something you are not confident about. Another example I have is when a customer is coming at you and they are angry for whatever reason. They are really upset with either you or the business or both. It is important in this situation also to manage your microexpressions, but also to try to find a common ground. You do not want to escalate the situation. You do not want to roll your eyes at the customer. You do not want to be rude to the customer back, because that will do nothing but make the situation worse. In this situation, it is important that you find common ground with the customer and be understanding of them and not interrogating them.
Hi, my name is Madison, and I will be talking about gestures, movement, and personal space. Hand gestures are an important part of nonverbal communication. They can support what we are saying, replace words, or sometimes even contradict our message. First, we have regulators. These are gestures that help control the flow of a conversation. For example, nodding your head shows that you are listening, and raising your hand shows that you would like to speak. Next are adapters. These are usually unconscious movements that help people deal with emotions like stress or nervousness. Examples include touching your face, playing with your hair, or even tapping your fingers. Next are illustrators. These gestures help explain what we are saying. For example, we might use our hands to show size, direction, or importance. These gestures help make our message clear and easier to understand. Some gestures have a very clear meaning that most people understand. These are called emblems. Some examples include a thumbs up for approval, a peace sign, or waving hello or goodbye. Another type is affect displays, which show emotion through body language. For example, bouncing or energetic movement can show happiness, while slouching can show sadness or low confidence. All of these gestures are a part of something called kinesics, which is the study of body movement in communication. It is also important to remember that gestures can mean different things in different cultures, situations, or groups of people. We'll talk more about that shortly. Movement also communicates how we feel. Fidgeting often shows nervousness, impatience, or distraction. These examples include tapping your foot, clicking a pen, or playing with your hair. Too much fidgeting can make someone seem less confident and may actually distract the audience. On the other hand, controlled movement actually shows confidence and self-control. This includes a steady posture, calm gestures, and purposeful movement. The goal is not to stand perfectly still, though, but to move with intention. Controlled movement helps people focus on what you are saying and makes you appear more confident and trustworthy. Personal space is another important part of nonverbal communication. The study of how people use space is called proxemics. The closest level is intimate distance, which is about 0 to 18 inches. The space is usually reserved for people we trust or feel emotionally close to, like family members, close friends, or romantic partners. Some example of things you might do at an intimate distance is hug, whisper, console, or in some cases, medical situations might require an intimate distance. Next is personal distance, which is about 18 inches to 4 feet. This is the space we normally use when talking to friends or small groups. It feels comfortable and allows friendly conversation without feeling too close. The next level is social distance, which ranges from about 4 to 12 feet. This distance is common in professional settings such as meetings, interviews, or conversations with people we do not know well. And finally, there is public distance. This is 12 feet or more. This is used when speaking to a group, such as giving a presentation or teaching a class. Personal space helps people feel comfortable, safe, and respected. Standing too close or too far away can affect how others perceive us. It is very important to remember that nonverbal communication can mean very different things in different cultures. For example, a thumbs up is considered positive in the United States, but it can be offensive in some parts of the Middle East. The OK hand sign means everything is fine in the US, but in some European countries, it can be considered rude and be considered you calling somebody zero. Standing close to someone may show friendliness in some cultures, like the Middle East, but in others it may feel uncomfortable or unprofessional, like in some countries in North Europe. Even casual touch, like a pat on the shoulder, can be seen as warm in some cultures in Latin America, but disrespectful in others, like North Europe. This example shows how nonverbal communication can affect a workplace meeting. Now on the left, Jordan uses very animated hand gestures while speaking. This can show confidence, but it can also distract others if the gestures are too strong. In the middle, Maya is fidgeting by tapping her foot and clicking on her pen. This may signal nervousness or lack of focus, which can distract the team. And on the right, Alex is standing a little too close while looking at Jordan's computer. This makes Jordan very uncomfortable and can create some tension, even though nothing is said verbally. This scenario shows how gestures, movement, and personal space all work together to affect communication in a professional setting.
I'm Sophie Swerger, and for my part of the project, I will be presenting how appearance serves as nonverbal communication. Now, I have a few key concepts that I'd like you to remember as I go through this presentation. So, appearance sends immediate signals about professionalism, competence, and attention to detail. Clothing, posture, standing up straight, not bouncing your leg, not leaning on your hip. Grooming all contribute to first impressions. Nonverbal cues can influence trust, credibility, and approachability. People often form judgments within seconds before any words are even spoken. And consistent professional appearance reinforces reliability and respect for workplace norms. So professional dress standards, studies show professionally dressed employees are viewed as more competent, probably more sophisticated, organized, because you're showing yourself well, showing that you care about other people, and how like the environment is, not casual and frivolous kind of. Professional dress aligns with company expectations and role responsibilities, so you should probably dress the part. If you're working in an office or wherever you work professionally, you should probably dress the part. Proper fit, cleanliness, and coordination are essential. Dressing properly shows respect for clients, colleagues, and the organization. You always want to keep a good image when you're working for a company, and keep a good image for yourself. It's usually better to slightly overdress than to underdress. Grooming and hygiene. Personal hygiene is a fundamental part of workplace professionalism. It shows self-discipline and respect for others' spaces. Poor hygiene can negatively affect teamwork and workplace relationships. It kind of gives off that you don't really care, and then that kind of affects the workplace morale with other employees. So you don't really want that. Just dress the part, dress nice, keep yourself looking good and healthy. So industry differences, whether you work at a hospital, you're blue collar, you work in an office, professionalism matters everywhere. Company culture is often shaped by the dress norm more than just the title alone. And understanding and adapting to industry standards help with the professional integration. So this has an impact on leadership perception because leaders are often judged more critically on appearance because they're leading, and you don't really want to listen to someone who doesn't show themselves well and present themselves well. I wouldn't, at least. A polished look can enhance authority, confidence, and credibility. And appearance can affect how seriously ideas are perceived. Like I said, you want to dress well so people respect you and respect their space. Don't want to make it seem like you don't care about being there if you dress and show yourself kind of negatively or ugly. And effective leaders align their appearance with their role, audience, and organizational culture. So this just goes hand in hand with dressing the part. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natasha Stadler, and I'm going to be talking about tone and emotional impact. Tone plays a huge role in how our message is received, even more than the actual words we say. A calm tone helps build trust and encourages cooperation, especially in professional settings. On the other hand, a harsh or aggressive tone can immediately make people defensive, even if the message itself isn't negative. A monotone voice can signal disengagement or boredom, which may cause others to lose interest. In contrast, an enthusiastic tone increases engagement and makes people more receptive to what you're saying. What's really important is that the same exact words can have completely different meanings depending on tone. So tone isn't just how we speak, it actually shapes emotional reactions and communication outcomes. Tone becomes especially important in everyday workplace situations like meetings, conflict, and feedback. In meetings, a steady and controlled tone shows confidence and professionalism. If someone speaks too quickly or sounds rushed, it can come across as nervous or unprepared. In conflict situations, tone can either escalate or de-escalate the situation. A calm tone helps reduce tension and keeps the conversation productive, while a raised or aggressive tone can make the situation worse very quickly. When giving feedback, tone is critical. A supportive tone encourages growth and helps the person feel open to improving. But if the tone is harsh or overly critical, the person is more likely to become defensive and ignore the feedback entirely. So overall, tone directly affects how effective communication is in different workplace situations. In leadership, tone is a powerful tool for influencing and guiding others. Leaders use tone not just to communicate information, but to set the emotional atmosphere of a team. A consistent and calm tone helps build trust and credibility over time. Confident delivery also signals authority and competence, which makes people more likely to respect and follow a leader. At the same time, emotional control is very important. Leaders who can manage their tone, even in stressful situations, come across as more stable and more professional. Overall, tone plays a key role in leadership presence and how effectively a leader can motivate and connect with their team. This example shows how tone can completely change the outcome of the same situation. Imagine a manager giving feedback to an employee. The actual words being used might be exactly the same, but the tone behind those words can completely shift how the message is received. In the ineffective version, the manager uses a flat or slightly annoyed tone and speaks very quickly. It may come across as impatient or even dismissive. So even if the feedback itself is helpful or valid, the employee is more likely to feel criticized or attacked. Because of that, they may become defensive, shut down, or stop really listening to what's being said. Now compare that to the effective version. Here, the manager uses a calm, steady tone and speaks with more controlled pacing. There's a sense of intention and clarity. Because of that, the employee feels more supported rather than judged. They're more open to listening, understanding, and applying the feedback. For example, if a manager says, "You need to improve your time management," in a rushed or annoyed tone, it can feel like blame. But if they say the exact same sentence in a calm and constructive way, it feels more like guidance. So even though the words themselves don't change, the tone determines whether the interaction leads to conflict or to growth. This really highlights how tone doesn't just affect communication, it directly impacts relationships, trust, and overall outcomes in the workplace. To sum it up, tone is a key part of communication that influences emotions, relationships, and overall effectiveness of the message, especially in professional and leadership settings.
Hello everyone, my name is David Scharfeld. Today I'm talking about some common nonverbal communication mistakes people make without even knowing it. The first one is eye contact. If someone avoids eye contact, they may seem nervous, distracted, or like they don't care. But if they stare too much, it can make the other person uncomfortable. Good eye contact should feel natural, not forced. Another mistake is poor posture. This includes slouching or having closed body language. The way we stand or sit can say a lot about how we feel. If we slouch, we may look tired, bored, or not confident. If our body is closed off, it can make us seem unfriendly. Facial expressions are also important. If your face does not match your words, it can confuse people. For example, if you're saying something serious but smiling, the other person may not know how to react. Crossing your arms is another common mistake. Even if you're just standing that way because it feels comfortable, it can make you look defensive, upset, or not open to listening. Fidgeting is also a problem. Things like taping your fingers, moving around too much, or playing with your hands can distract people. It can also make you look nervous or unprepared. The last mistake is not being aware of personal space. Standing too close to someone uncomfortable and standing too far away can make you seem distant. Personal space is a small thing, but it can make a big difference in communication. Poor nonverbal communication can cause a lot of problems even when the words themselves sound fine. One big problem is confusion. If your body language says one thing but your words say something else, people may not know which one to believe. In many cases, people may pay more attention to body language than to words. It can cause lower trust and credibility if someone avoids eye contact, looks distracted, or has negative body language. They may seem less honest, less confident, or less professional. Poor nonverbal communication can also make a person seem uninterested. For example, if someone is slouching or looking away or not showing any expressions, others may think they do not care, even if that's not true. This is very important in healthcare. Patients pay close attention to more than just what is said. They also notice facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. If a healthcare worker looks rushed, annoyed, or distracted, the patient may feel nervous or feel like they're not important. Poor nonverbal communication can also hurt teamwork. Team members need to feel respected and understood. If someone looks annoyed, bored, or closed off, it can lead to misunderstandings. Overall, poor nonverbal communication makes it harder for people to connect and understand each other. How to improve nonverbal skills. The good news is that nonverbal communication can get better with practice. One way to improve this is making natural eye contact. This helps show that you are listening and paying attention. You do not want to stare, but you want other persons to know you are focused on them. Another way is to use open and relaxed body posture. Standing or sitting up straight can make you look more confident and more approachable. It also helps the other person feel more comfortable. It also is important to match your facial expressions to your message. If you are trying to show concern, your face should look calm and caring. If you are trying to be encouraging, your expression should look warm and supportive. We should also pay attention to our own tone, gestures, and spacing. The way we sound, the way we move our hands, and how close we stand to someone all affects how our message is being received. Active listening also helps improve nonverbal communication. Small actions like nodding, facing the speaker, and staying focused shows that you truly are listening. Finally, asking for feedback can reflect on your own habits. Sometimes we do not notice our own body language. Practicing in front of a mirror, recording yourself, or asking someone for feedback can help you improve. Some key takeaways in nonverbal communication is just as important as verbal communication. Sometimes it can have even a bigger effect than the words we say. Small things like eye contact, posture, facial expressions, and gestures can change how others feel and how they understand us. The first step to improving is being aware of what we are doing. Once we notice our habits, we can start making better choices. Positive body language helps build trust and connections. It also can help people feel more comfortable, respected, and understood. This is especially important in healthcare. Good nonverbal communication can help patients feel safe and supported. It can also improve teamwork and make communication more effective. So overall, nonverbal communication matters a lot. By paying attention to it and making small improvements, we can become better communicators in school, at work, and in everyday lives. Nonverbal communication is very important in the workspace. The way you look, stand, speak, and react can change how others see you. Good eye contact, posture, facial expressions, and tone can help build trust, confidence, and teamwork. When your action matches your words, your message is stronger. Small nonverbal habits can make a difference in how professional and respected you seem. Our final thought as a group is your body language speaks before you do, so make it count.